Thank you so much, John, for being here today. We're all so excited to talk to you and hear about your story. Actually, from your own podcast and times that we've heard you speak before, you have such a unique and inspiring story. And so we're really excited to get into everything about it. So, can you take us back to day one? What was like your earlier years like?
Oh, wow. Day one. Well, hopefully not day one, because if I could actually remember day one, that would be a story for your podcast. Yeah, I think, nothing that is extraordinary, in terms of way back then, at least up till probably when I was 13 or 14 or so, grew up in Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C., normal kid like everyone else. They didn't have nothing really to speak of, right? So the starting point, I would say, is as normal as it can be. And I think maybe many people go through that. Some go through more interesting stories, but I would say the first 13 years, 14 years was just like all your listeners right now is kind of the normal kid experience, I think.
Yeah, and so as you kind of went along with your journey and entered into high school, obviously you face a lot of different challenges with family, with friends. So, what did a single day kind of look like for you during that time, and how did you keep moving forward and persevere?
Yeah, I like that you said moving forward. That's going to be a recurring theme here. And sort of the one takeaway is no matter what we talk about here and what we say, that's been the theme of my life is always moving forward. No matter what happens, you might take a hit, you might have to pause, you might take a step back, but it's always moving forward. Um, in fact, my license plate on my car and the name of my company that I co-own with my wife is Fit Forward. So fitness is important for us, being fit, not just, healthy wise but fit in the right job, fit in the right environment, so on and so forth, and then forward. So always moving forward is a big theme of mine. And so I would say, in high school, when things started to go differently, I think all of us have faced some kind of challenge. Like you can just pause for a minute and think about what was the biggest challenge you had in your life, right? Mine happened when I was in high school. My parents got divorced as I was getting into high school. Nothing really new or different there. A lot of parents get divorced, and we as kids work through it, right? Moving forward. Mine was a little different. The parents got divorced. My stepmother moved in very quickly. I was living with my dad at the time, and we didn't get along really at all. My poor stepmother, never had kids, and all of a sudden she has three teenage kids, and so she doesn't know how to be a mom. We don't know how to deal with the new mom in town. And so, as the rebellious older child, I fought back, and we ended up having a lot of conflict in our home. And I remember getting into fist fights with my dad, and I remember just having, things were just not good. And of course, then it makes you want to rebel more, and then so on and so forth. Long story short, I was kicked out of my house as a senior in high school. So probably the first quarter of my high school year. I just started a senior in high school. I was booted out of my house. So I was effectively homeless starting as a senior in high school.
Wow. I think that that is something that honestly, like so many people face so many adversities in so many ways, but I think that specifically your story is a testament that you can come from literally anywhere. And if you have the perseverance, like you said, to fit forward, keep moving forward, then you're able to just persevere and get through hard times and makes the better times like better, I guess if you could say that. But kind of what got you through those earlier days? Because to that point, you had a pretty normal life. Like, you didn't have any huge accomplishments or setbacks yet. And then you're thrown into this whole new whirlwind. How were you able to keep persevering knowing that there was something more that you had left to do?
I think at the time it was just one day at a time, figuring out in the moment for the moment where I was going to live, what I was going to eat, what I was going to do, if I was going to go to school or not. Um, I had a family friend take me in for a short period of time, and long story short, there too, a lot of things happened, and that relationship ended. And then, I would stay with a friend one night and then not another night. And so I just kind of lived day to day, so to speak. I think the last half of my senior year, so what is that? Probably what, 4 months worth of school or whatever. I think I attended two classes, literally, not two classes, two classes of that entire time. So I basically skipped my entire senior year as a kid living on his own. No one's telling me to go to school. I don't want to go to school. I just basically did whatever I could do to survive. There was a housing development that was being built not too far from where my parents lived, and when they build the house, they build the frame of the house, right? That's the first thing and the first thing that goes into the house is what? A bathtub. They put a bathtub. Like if you go walk into any home being built, you can see the plumbing for the bathrooms and all. And usually a bathtub is one of the first things. So I would sleep in these bathtubs in these homes that were being built until I couldn't do that anymore. And I would always move from one house to another so that, no one would know I was there, right? Or I would sleep in a carport. I was working at a restaurant as a cook, which was good because I could go to work and I could feed myself, make a little bit of money, right? And so I just, whatever happened was kind of like day to day. I graduated from high school only because I think my high school didn't want me around and didn't want to keep me or whatever else. I had grades good enough, even though I never attended school. I don't know how I graduated high school. That's the story, I guess. Is I don't know how I graduated high school, but I did. And I spent probably a year and a half or 2 years after that, sort of in the same situation. I was kind of working this job and then that job, which is an interesting lesson for any students that are listening, because not only is there the resilience side of things, when I talk to a lot of students, they say, I don't know what I want to do with my life and what am I supposed to do? And well, I didn't know either. And so I was like, oh, you know what? Sounds really cool being a DJ. So I was a DJ. I'd go to parties, I had equipment set up and I would like DJ, these parties and stuff. And then that wasn't for me. And then I was like, you know what? Traveling is really interesting. So I decided I'm going to go work for an airline. And I was one of those guys that was loading bags onto the plane and then
Oh, wow.
pulling planes in and pushing them out with with that whatever the devices they call it. So I did that for a little bit. And then I was like, I don't know if I like that. And then I was working for someone had told me IT is going to be the wave of the future. So I worked for this IT company for like 2 weeks and I didn't like that. My stepfather is a executive in in the record industry, or he works for a record company. And so like, well, I want to be like him. So maybe I want to go. So I worked for a record store and I'm like, I just really don't like music like that. So then I didn't do that. So I tried probably 7 different careers after my first couple of years of high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
During that time while you were still figuring out what you wanted to do, was there any notable figures that maybe saw something in you that you didn't see in yourself?
I wish there was. Probably would have set me on course a little bit more. I would say one thing I will say, whatever stories we talk about here, I have not one regret. If I had a chance to go back and do it all over again, I wouldn't do anything different.
Wow.
Most people would say, well, that's weird. Like your parents kicked you out, you got in fights with your dad, like, hit you and stuff, and you did this and that. I would do the same thing all over again because it made me the person I am and it gave me the experiences that I have. I wouldn't do it any differently.
Right.
And I say that because one of the things is I did have to figure it out by myself. And that made me, as you said, resilient. That made me have to learn to figure it out. And one thing I'll tell you three, and I'll say to anybody listening, is no matter what it is, you can and you will figure it out. Yeah, you just will. You will absolutely figure it out. And so I figured things out on my own. And so that allowed me to be independent, self-sufficient. It's really interesting. My brother is an example, great guy, younger than me. He had a different path through all this. He stayed with my parents. When my mom moved up to Boston, she took my brother with her. I didn't get to go. He did. So he was always sort of coddled and he was always sort of taken care of through high school, and everything else. And if you look at the two of us, we're way different. I'm very independent. I can take care of everything. I take care of other people, take care of my family, take care of others, try to help college. Like I can do anything by myself on my own. And I'm super successful. We can talk about the rest of my career. He's not. And he's very self-sufficient, still on my parents' money and my parents' everything else. So same genetics, same first 10 years of life or whatever else, right? But the paths were so different, they made us two different people. And so I would say I would not go back and change anything, because I wouldn't be who I am without going through what I did. No regrets. I have zero regrets with everything that's happened in my life. Zero regrets.
It's powerful.
So you had mentioned, you're just a teenager at this time, and you're kind of taking every opportunity you get and run with it, right? You were a DJ for a short amount of time. You try to go into IT, working at all these different, on the planes as well. Was there a single moment in time when you realized that, like, I have to control my life and I have to, get in front of everything and, deal with it myself?
No, no. And that's a really powerful lesson, because I think everyone wants that one moment, that one point in time, that one person to say something, that one life-changing event. And I think many times we wait for that life-changing event to happen and it doesn't happen. It probably happens to, 1% of the population, right? That has this life-changing, altering event or whatever. Most of us, it happens over time. And for me, it was a period of time, and we're all anxious to want to have it happen to us now. I want to know what I need to do right now. I want that one motivational thing that's going to kick me in the, and get me going now. I want to do this one thing now. And at the end of the day, you lose sight of what life is all about. Life isn't about that one moment, that one thing. Life is about every day you live and the journey you go through. And so there wasn't one, it's a great question. There wasn't one thing I can look back on. But I can look back on the journey and say, wow, it was the, you know, aggregate of all the stuff that happened to me over time that did it. You know, a lot of students are worried about graduating and what do I do next? And what if I don't get into school or get the right major or whatever else? I finally I did go to graduate from college. I went to the University of Virginia, one of the top public schools in the country, after failing out of community college multiple times. I didn't get my degree from college until I was 30.
Wow.
So pause on that for a minute, right? You're worried about at 22, 24, 20, 21, 26, whatever, what am I going to do with my life? How about me not getting a degree, not doing my internship until I was 30?
Right. Yeah, and I think that honestly is in so many ways kind of comforting at the same time, because I think in the world of LinkedIn, in the world of, I don't know, just this crazy job market, so many people trying to get in and not a lot of jobs that are out there. I think that there's just this pressure that people put on themselves, like you're saying, to be the best that they can be right out of college and have it figured out and have it on a plan. But what I've learned through the time of hosting ChompCast and talking to people is that honestly, the most successful people that we've talked to, the times where they found their happiness or their success in life was when things didn't go to plan. And when things kind of, they took an opportunity there and they're like, hey, like, this might work, this might not, but I have to bet on myself. And they were able to do that. So I want to get into your time at UVA, your time at UF. That was a very clean slate for you. How did you decide kind of who you wanted to be when no one knew your story yet in these places? What made you decide to get that degree?
I knew that I wanted to do something more than what I was doing. And I had also heard you got to go to college. Everyone always says you have to get a degree. You have to get a degree. Okay, fine, right? And I was a terrible student in high school, by the way. Terrible student, like terrible. I'll say a couple things. One is for some reason, I had a goal to get a degree, partially because people were telling me I couldn't do it. And people were also telling me, you'll never get into UVA. With your grades in high school, the fact that you barely graduated from high school, the fact that you're an older student, and the fact that you're the start of your community college um, career, whatever you want to call it, transcript was horrible. UVA, the top public school in the country, is never going to accept you. So part of it was a challenge for me. Is like, oh yeah, okay, well, watch me, right? Part of it was also I always want to be the best. There's just something in me. I just maybe it's always trying to make up for lost time. Maybe it would like, look, if I wasn't going to graduate until I was 30, I'm not going to go do it at some small school in Virginia and Southwest Virginia that no one's heard of. I'm going to go to UVA. I'm going to make a name for myself. I don't know what it was. It could be that I had to go through everything I had to go through to get that, that burning desire or whatever. Um, so I chose UVA and I set my heart on, and that was the only place I looked at. So there's a lesson there is I didn't know that until later in life. Some never figure it out, right? Some don't have that one burning thing or one big goal to go do. Um, so you pick something, you choose something, right? And you just kind of walk towards it. And sometimes it does come onto you. It's like, oh, that was cool. That I didn't know that I really liked that. And so I just kind of leaned in on that. You asked the question about, who I was. At the time, I still didn't know who I was. I think I didn't really start truly understanding who I was and what drove me and what made me who I wanted to be, more importantly, probably until I was in my mid to late 40s.
Wow. With everything that you had been through, going to UVA, how did that feel stepping onto campus the first time after everything that you experienced in high school and your upbringing?
It wasn't, I embraced it. It's like I'm an older student. I'm 10 years older than every other student here. But I knew I went there really to focus on school. And I ended up graduating with honors from the University of Virginia. So I was in, I guess, what the top 5% of my class or whatever that means. I don't know exactly. I know I had really, really good grades, very good grades, almost a 4.0. I really just focused on it. So I knew that I wasn't going to do a fraternity or anything. And I knew that I wasn't going to do a lot of I was there to get the best grades I can, prove people wrong that said I couldn't do it. And so that's what I did.
And so I know I've had the honor of listening to you speak at the Florida Leadership Academy, and something that I thought was just transformative was, how you got into UVA. Could you kind of shed some light onto kind of what you did to get into the university?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm glad you asked, because the one of the many takeaways, hopefully, that your listeners get is that if you want something, you have to do something sort of extraordinary, something that's different, right? And I like that because I work for VOSS right now, and VOSS's tagline is "Choose extraordinary." I love that, right? So if you want to do something, you have to do something extraordinary, right? You're gonna go for jobs or whatever, there's probably 100 people applying for that job. So what are you going to do that's different than everybody else for them to pick you? So getting into college, I knew as a student, I was working for a law firm at the time because I wanted to be a lawyer. So there was another career I thought I wanted to do. And I said, well, wouldn't it be interesting to write a legal brief, tell my story in this sort of legal way, with footnotes and appendixes and everything else. And I just put together this whole story about who I was and almost treated the admissions officer like a judge.
Oh,
And
wow.
I wanted to convince the judge to, to let me into school there, right? And so I literally wrote a legal brief, and I did it very in legal speak and everything else, and told my story. And I was this person, but here's who I'm going, and let me show it to you. And I just all this stuff, and I just attached all these exhibits like you would normally do in a legal brief, right? There's all this evidence and everything else, and so I attached all this. I drove to UVA a week before the deadline to submit my application. I walked into the admissions office. I don't know who the person was that I talked to. The first person I saw, she was sitting behind the desk. I walked up, I introduced myself, John Walsh. I'm from Northern Virginia. I'm coming to school here. I just wanted to drop this off with you, and I'll see you next year.
Aw.
And I left, right? And then I submitted my application, and apparently they told me afterwards that did it. That stuck out in their mind that there was this kid who's 10 years older, who had these terrible grades, homeless, everything else. And now he's got good grades, turned his life around. He's doing all this stuff. He wrote this legal brief, very persuasive, compelling. came down here to just drop this off instead of mailing it and try to do everything I could to be different and extraordinary and be memorable. And that works. That's how I got into UVA. Now, they still let me into UVA, but I wanted to go to the business school, and they said, we're going to let you in. However, you can't go to the business school. We're going to give you 2 semesters. So I got in as a mid-year transfer, as a sophomore, and they said, you have to go to school in the spring semester and the summer, and we'll see how you do. So there was again the test, someone not believing in me. So I said, okay. I got straight A's for both of those semesters. So they let me into the business school. So I had to reapply, do that again. So there's always sort of the trying to prove people wrong is something that motivates me. Here's one thing I would say. There is something that motivates the 3 of you and everybody listening. There is something. For me, it's people telling me no. Competition, playing sports all my life. If you ask me to compete, I'm gonna win, right? I know what drives me. Find that thing that drives you and then leverage the heck out of it. So I knew that if someone told me, I was going to leverage that. And so that's what I did. So
Yeah. And I think I've heard that theme a lot throughout my life. Even my dad has told me a very similar story. When he was in Pakistan, he was trying to get into medical school, and none of the school. It's so there's so many students, like hundreds of thousands, if not millions, trying to get into that one school. And he told me how he would go and give the admissions officer, his transcript every week. And go up to give her handwritten notes and gifts and anything he possibly could do, and go out of his way. And I think that theme is just so powerful that you have to put yourself out there. You have to take that step forward, and showcase that you truly care about it, because no one's going to know what you want and how you want it unless you tell them.
Very true.
you just have to put yourself like in the other person's shoes for a minute, right? When I was working for Disney, I used to lead a group that led the recruiting work, right? And so I sat on the other side. I would interview a lot of students who wanted to work for Disney. So just think about the admissions office, people making the decisions, or think about people making decisions at some job or whatever that you want. They just imagine them having an opening job, a job opening, and stacks. And I'm not literally, I'm talking about stacks of resumes from there. How would you siphon through just one resume after they start looking the same? And then interview students coming in, right? What is it that makes that one hire different? It's not just, hey, they dressed in the suit that you're supposed to dress in, or they practice their elevator speech, or they have this resume with certain experiences or whatever. There's something about them that makes them memorable, so that a week later or 2 weeks later, when the decision is made, you look back and you're like, I remember that person. That person moved me, right? So you always want to do something that's extraordinary to make yourself memorable.
Well, beyond the University of Virginia, you then went on to attend the University of Florida. What drew you to the University of Florida?
So I was working for Disney at the time, and I knew I wanted to get my MBA, and so I weighed a number of different factors, right? And I explored a lot of different options. I looked at leaving Disney to go. I wanted to, since I went to a top school, I wanted to go to another top school, right? And so that automatically eliminated a bunch of schools. But then I was like, well, so then I started looking at the Dukes and Virginia and Penn and Harvard and Michigan, right? I was looking at all these schools, North Carolina. Um, and I was weighing other factors. At the time, I was married to my ex-wife, and we had a child on the way, so that was a consideration. I had to consider my job at Disney. Did I want to stay there? Because we can talk about this. I was having this crazy progression at Disney in terms of my career there. Did I want to step off that track? Um, Money, how much I was going to pay, because I paid for everything myself throughout my life. I've never taken, any money from anyone. So I knew I had to pay it. So as I was weighing all these different factors, I was also looking at the University of Florida. And at the time, 15, 20 something years ago, when I got my MBA, maybe it wasn't that long ago, 15 years ago, whatever it was. Florida was up and coming. They weren't ranked where they are now, but I knew where they were going, right? And so I decided to go to the University of Florida for that reason. Everything together, right? It was I did the executive MBA program, so I could keep. I decided to keep my you know. I went through what is important to me, and what was important to me. What was important to other people is, did you go to Harvard or not? Okay, whatever. But what was important to me was my career at Disney, my family, the path that I was on, and so I also knew I wanted the challenge of both working and getting my MBA at the same time. I wanted to prove to myself I could do it. So all these different factors, I looked at who I was, what I wanted, and made that decision. And Florida fit perfectly. Locally, I could afford it financially. It was up and coming. I could be involved in the school afterwards, and I did. I joined. I was on the advisory board for MBA. I was actually the president of the advisory board for the MBA programs there. I come back and I can speak, and I do some classes at University of Florida. I do FLA every year. So I wanted a place where, like, if it was Duke or Virginia or somewhere else, I wouldn't be able to have that connection to the school. And I wanted to have the connection to the school. So I chose Florida for a lot of different reasons. So I'm really happy I did. Again, no regrets, and I wouldn't do anything differently.
And with that, go Gators.
Gators.
So I wanted to transition a little bit into your kind of success-oriented mindset. You've talked a little bit, or I've heard you speak about how life is a little bit of a game. What game are you playing now, and what rules do you live by?
Yeah, the rules I live by are my rules, right? The things that drive me are important to me. Those are my rules. And then my only other rule is the people that are around me, the impact that I have on the people around me. And so those are the rules that I live by. Um, there's all kind of like societal norms, and obviously there's actual laws, and don't break those. I'm not going to tell anybody to like do that. But those the rules that I live by are my rules, right? It's my life. It's my choice on what I want to do. I don't really care what other people think or what other people want me to do. It's what I want to do. What's important to me, what makes me happy and joyful and fulfilled, and drives me, and is who I am. And at the same time, the people around me. So it's one of I know my core values, and one of my core values, besides always bettering myself, is the impact I have on other people. Those are two of my primary core values, along with competition and leadership, right? And so my rules are those, and I live by those. I think one of the most important things that anyone can do is understand truly who they are and accept who they are, and just live by that with no regrets and not looking back, because those values and who you're about and what drives you and what's important to you are the only rules that matter.
I really love that. I really love how you emphasize living without regrets and choosing you. By choosing you, have you ever chosen, maybe professional or not, a risky choice that felt unconventional but ended up shaping your path in a positive way?
Yeah, I'll give you two examples that just jumped. Great question. That jumped out right away when you said that. I've been divorced twice, and I'm in my third marriage. And again, I wouldn't do it any differently. And I know that those two marriages prepared me for the husband I am in this one, and I know that this is the one. Um, I made some selfish decisions in those marriages, thought about me first instead of the other person, which contributed to the divorces happening. Um, but again, that made me who I am now, and allowed me to be with the person that I'm with now, right? I needed to make those decisions, and I make different decisions now, because I'm not solely focused on me. The other one is, when I was working for Disney here, I had an opportunity to go to New York to help launch Disney Plus. So Disney wanted me to move up to New York City and launch Disney Plus. At the time, Disney had just bought it from Major League Baseball. It was called BAMTech. And Disney was converting that platform to their platform, renaming it as Disney Plus and launching it as what everybody knows it today. The selfish decision was, I'm career driven. This was a VP role for me. I'm going to go launch this great new product. This is going to look great on the resume. The downside of it was that meant leaving my daughter behind. And at the time I was going through a divorce. So it cost me probably some years and some emotional baggage with my daughter because I chose my career first. So I think there were times where I made choices for myself almost too much, which is why I said there's two rules to live by. One is the me rules, and the other is the impact on other people rules, right? Again, I will tell you, no regrets. No regrets. I don't look back and wouldn't do it any differently. But it did, as I think about, I get a ton of opportunities now, a lot of opportunities. Because of what I went through before, I'm making different choices. I'm not leaving to go to another place to move out of the area or anything now. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think sometimes you can make too much of a personal decision. That's why I balance it with the impact that's going to have on other people. Where it hit me though was it was right spring break. So I had her up in New York for spring break. And at the time I was working for Madison Square Garden. I was the senior vice president there over finance, operations, and strategy. And so I had taken her at this point, she was traveling by herself. She loved it. She would get on a plane by herself at 13 years old, 12, 13 years old. She loved flying by herself. She loved the treatment by herself, right? Well, at the time, a snowstorm started to roll in. This is, in mid-March or whatever. So in New York, this freak snowstorm. So we were at JFK, the airport there, and I was seeing my daughter off in the morning, and then I was going to go to work, right? So we go there, everything else, I buy her little treats and all. She goes on the plane. She's all happy. She's on the plane. She's got her bag of treats. She's got her little Game Boy thing. She's all excited. So she goes, and the snowstorm starts to roll in. And I stay there, and I always like to watch for when the plane takes off, right? So I'm watching, plane backs away. I'm like, oh, my daughter's in there. That's so cool. And they go down to the end of the runway. And at this point, it starts to snow so bad, I can't even see the runway, or I can't even see the plane at this point. You can sort of see the lights when they turned it on, because when a plane gets ready to take off, the lights come on right before they take off. So I see it, and the plane starts to go, and I'm like, oh, good, I can see it again. And then it starts to lift off, and then it maybe got 100 feet in the air and then disappeared into the clouds. And I was like, I turned around, and I took about 5 steps, and I just stopped. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I literally had to sit down. So at JFK, you walk down and there's like a big open area, and then there's a bunch of gates that all kind of. So I was in this open area, and I had to sit down. People were like going by me with suitcases and everything else, and I started crying. And I'm like, what am I doing? I'm like, yeah, it's great that I'm a senior vice president for Madison Square Garden, but I just put my 12-year-old daughter on an airplane flying into a snowstorm. What in the world is she going through? And she told me afterwards it was a terrible flight. It was super bumpy, and it was just, she doesn't like to fly now because of that. But I remember thinking, I got to get out of here. What am I doing? Like, I'm so much into like my career and making up for that teenage kid that was homeless and everything else, that I'm losing track of being a dad and being for other people. And I made a decision at that point that I was going to do something different.
And I think the reason that I'm a little bit speechless is I think all of us in this room are extremely, success oriented, and we want to do as many things as possible at all different times. But when I think about the family I want to raise in the future, I don't know how I'm going to balance that time, how I'm going to make sure that I'm taking out the time that I need to in order to put them first. And also, I've heard a lot of these things, like, for example, my dad, when we go to the movies, I'm the one that sits down and gets to enjoy the popcorn, but he's the one that would go and get the popcorn while the movie started. So, making those sacrifices is something that I'm not sure I would even, be good at making or want to make, but I'm sure it's something that, you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Well, remember what I said, you will figure it out. There's no manual, there's no playbook for being a parent, for having a career and a family. And by the way, doing personal things that you like to do. Like I like to golf, right? So I've got my family. I love golfing. I try to golf 4 or 5 times a week, right? And then I've got my career, and then I do things like this on the side. Like I've got a lot going on. Um, and you figure it out. You really do, right? And so I think, when you make smart choices every day. Like I have a routine for my day and I set my day up that I can balance all this stuff. Most people, it's interesting you say that because most people just kind of wake up and like, oh my gosh, I got to do my family and da 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 da, right? And they just kind of like whatever, they just kind of work through it. Like you might be trying to balance school activities. I got friends, I got to apply for this job and da da da. And you're like trying to, that you've got certain classes you got to attend. There's probably some certain work hours you got to work, but are you truly planning your day out? What you find is if you plan the day out and you enter each day very intentionally, you'll be amazed at how much you can do. If you took a week and just said, I'm going to document every single day, like what did I do this hour? What did I do this hour? What did I do this hour? You'd look back on that week and be like, holy cow, I have 16 hours that, what did I do? Right. And so
Right.
you think about it. And so like, just for, as an example, like I'll wake up and I know that, hey, there's some days where like, I'm going to do one crazy thing for my daughter today. Right. And it's on my things to do. Right. And so I'm very intentional, or, my daughter loves to go outside and throw football with dad. So I make it a point on Saturday, I'm going to go outside. I'm going to throw football with my daughter. Right. If you just kind of leave it to happenstance, you won't do it. But if you said, Rafa, that like my family's really important and I got this thing at work to do, you will find a way to get it done. You really will.
It seems like that flight and that event was a big mindset change for you. Do you think your high school version of yourself would be surprised?
My high school self would look at me now and I never could have envisioned this. I never would have envisioned where I'm at right now. So I think the high school kid in me is clapping for who he became. And I think part of what drives me is always making that teenage kid back then happy, right? And proving to my parents that you may have done that, but look what I'm doing now. And so there's a motivation for me to always make my parents proud and happy. Now, what's interesting is the parents that kicked me out, my dad and my stepmother. My stepmother passed away last year from cancer. It was really difficult. And then my dad has full blown dementia. So I'm taking care of my dad. He's in a home. So he doesn't know what's happening. My stepmother's not around. So I'm sort of still proving to parents that don't even exist anymore. It's kind of an interesting, sort of dynamic for me.
Well, I just wanted to say this as well, John. Like, I don't like all of us are never speechless. Like, we always have something to say somehow,
Very
like to
true.
respond to what the guests are saying, especially. And I just have, there's nothing I can say. I think you summarize it all perfectly. I mean, wow.
Yeah, for sure. So, because of how great you are at speaking, and I think being able to vocalize things that are very hard to comprehend, and it's part of the human journey, but it takes the work to learn the lessons that you have, and even more work to be able to speak about them. So, I want to talk about your podcast and book because you seem like the exact person that would have a podcast and be able to have a book, and I need to read. So, when you're sharing your story, what do you hope that you're emphasizing the most in these platforms and why?
If every person is different and unique and special, right? And if I probably like my book the standout experience was all about how do you stand out in life, in your career, in your family, and whatever else. And standout was actually an acronym, right? The S was self, T is tomorrow, A is attitude, right? There's just like, it all stands for something. And it was kind of like a playbook for life. And there's a lot in that book. It almost reads like a textbook. It's one of the things I do regret. Okay, there's one regret is I would have done the book a little differently. But there's a lot in there. When I speak, there's a lot I speak about. Um, I say that, and bringing those two ideas together is, if there's one thing that each person pulls differently and can use that, that's what this is all about.
Right.
So there's probably not, I want everyone to stand out, and I'm going to make sure, Rafa, for you, it might be the how do you balance everything, right? It might be the, how I think about my dad a little bit differently, right? It might be about, my job or whatever, how I'm going to approach the job. If there's one thing that you take from all of it, then that's it. Because I don't know what resonates with people. All I know is that we all go through the same experience, like not the same experience, but we go through the same human experience. Life is super hard. There is no answer. There is no playbook. There is nothing that a person's going to come on this podcast and tell you this is the thing. It could be different for every person that speaks to you, and it's the one thing. You three of you are doing the podcast right now. I assume you're going to go back and listen to it again. I will bet you that when you listen to it again, you're going to find something different and take away something different than you're taking away today. Mm-hmm. So I think with my podcast, which I stopped, by the way, we can talk about why. The podcast, I left it out there in case anyone wanted to listen to some of them. But if there's something from the podcast or a speech that I give or the book or one of these sessions or something else, then that's what makes it all worthwhile.
All of that, it's so true. I think when you're hearing lessons, especially when I feel like when I'm filming these podcasts first, when I actually watch them back, it's true. Like you film it and you're at this point in your life, so you're hearing and you're taking and you're resonating with certain things. But then when you watch back, it's like even if it's a week later, a month later, it's so crazy how fast life can change and how your emotions and how the kind of how you feel in that day can be different and you can resonate with things that are different. And also, I think it speaks to just learning from somebody as like that's a continual path. It's a continual progress. It's not linear and it's not able to just, take something from somebody and be like, okay, I understand that now. But sometimes it takes time to learn these lessons, like we were talking about earlier, and it takes the ability to self-reflect. So I do want to talk about your position at VOSS. So as CFO of VOSS, what's something people would be surprised to learn that you actually do?
Yeah, my job is actually twofold. I am the CFO and COO. So I also am Chief Operating Officer for VOSS. So I have all of the operation side, all of the supply chain, production, all of that. And I have my finance responsibility. So I have them both. I think, every day you'll hear this from everybody, right? Every day's different. Every day's different. And it's true. Every day is different. Like today I was dealing with a cash flow issue. Yesterday I was dealing with a production issue. The day before I was dealing with our water quality issue, right? So every day really is different. I think there are, when I approach each day, I always have a bunch of meetings in the day. Same thing with you. Like when you all go to work, and you get jobs and everything else, there's gonna just be certain meetings on your calendar. That is what it is. There's gonna be certain meetings that are more important than others. And so I always know which are the most important meetings and which are just the meetings I need to attend. And then there's a part, so that's one part of my day. Another part of my day is there's usually one big project or one big thing that I have to keep advancing every single day, right? And so I usually spend the first 30 minutes of my day, how do I move that ball a little bit forward and then a little bit forward, a little forward. And then I've got my team. I always have to check in on my team. How are they doing? Kind of what are they working on? How can I help them? What barriers can I remove? Whatever else. And then there's just things that come at me in a given day, email, request, or whatever else. So I think every day really is balancing all those and working through all those things. My job is really interesting. We produce water in Norway. We produce water here in the U.S. I'm actually planning a trip to go to Norway right now, so that's interesting. We're all over the country. We have this amazing water. we just launched this, I don't know if you can see it, but this sparkling can water.
No.
So
I have no idea.
well, it's the artesian water that's sparkling. It's so amazing. So we're trying to launch this new product. Um, we've got a new idea, a new product that we're going to launch next year. We're changing manufacturers. It's just the job is so exciting. It's so interesting. I still have to close the books every month, and I still have to do all the finance stuff and everything else. But there's all that part of it, you know. So it's a great job. I really enjoy it.
While we're on the topic of kind of the financial side of VOSS, what financial metrics do you pay most attention to? Not just as CFO, but as somebody looking towards the long-term health of the company.
I think it depends on the company and what the KPIs or key performance indicators metrics are for that company. Usually, any great company has 3 to 5 that they're really, really focused on, right? And so our job in finance is support those 3 or 5. Obviously, as a finance professional, I'm looking at what our P&L says. I'm looking at gross revenue and earnings. I'm looking at our balance sheet, managing cash, how much cash do we have, and that kind of thing. So I've got those performance indicators, but generally my performance indicators are aligned with the company. And, for us, we're a sales organization. So sales, gross sales every day is a key performance measure. um, uh, Customer service is a key performance measure, and then our efficiency. So we have different measures, and every company is going to have different measures depending on what you do. And each function's different. Marketing has their metrics, right? They have return on eyeball views, right? And they have different marketing metrics. My operations team has other metrics, right? Uptime, uh, production quality, um, estimated delivery time, right? So we have a bunch of different metrics, and so everything's really different, and they all come together. So you look at a lot of metrics, but you really focus on the 3 that drive the entire organization together.
Yeah.
Personally, there's probably a lot of metrics you're looking at. Most people look at did I get the job? Did I get the A? Did I get this? Okay, great. There's probably 3 or 5 metrics that you should always look at that are, how you can sort of measure yourself. And then there's a lot of other performance metrics, right? And so I look at certain measures related to my family, my career, and my health, right? And so I look at those, and underneath those, like you can see, I've got a Whoop, I've got an Aura ring. I'm always measuring all the data with my health. Um, I'm checking in with my wife, and I'm, measuring how did I do this week? How did we do? What can I do better next week? Right? We're always kind of checking in, and then work. I've got my own metrics, right? And so underneath that, I have a lot of metrics too. So when you look at, there's metrics all around, right? And if you know how to use them and apply them. So we've got my metrics at VOSS, and I've got my own personal metrics too.
We want to transition to like your core values, just kind of lightning round a little bit, just asking you a lot of questions about that. So, is there anything that you love to talk about but rarely get asked?
I think I get asked a lot about my high school, getting into college, going to college. I get asked a lot about my career at Disney. I started as an intern and became an executive in 9 years there. So I got promoted almost every year, and kind of what that looks like. Changing jobs to Madison Square Garden. I started my own business, which is why I wrote the book and had the podcast. I had my own business, leaving that to go work for VOSS. So I get asked a lot of questions about that. I did a talk with FLA last year, and the one thing I think that people don't ask enough about are choices. I believe everything in life is a choice, and the choices that you make are the most important thing you'll ever do. Um, if you're making the right choices in the right areas, and so I think we don't talk about that enough. Ultimately, you have ultimate say in anything that happens in your life. You might not get to a say in if they say that you're hired or not, but you get to say whether or not you're going to take that job, or you're going to look somewhere else. Like your life is your choice. And I don't think we talk enough about choices. And when I came to FLA last year, I talked through the 6 most important choices that you can make in your life. Right. And we went through it. Right. We went through and we're like, these are the 6 most important things. So I don't think we talk about that enough, those choices. So, I mean, I don't know if you want to Okay.
Yeah, what are the 6 most
I would
important?
love for you to go and talk about.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's six, and they're in buckets. There's a three and a three. So there's three internal choices that you make, and then there's three external choices you can make. And you got to do all these together, right? So the three internal are kind of what's all about you, and the three external are how it impacts other people, right? Did you see the theme there? Like we were talking about, right? So here's the six, right? And they are literally in this order, right? And this is all my life wrapped up, six choices, right? The very first one is who you want to be. Period. Who do you decide you want to be? Not who your parents are telling you, your friends want you to be. Literally, self-reflection, as you mentioned before. Who do I want to be? That, like, you get to decide who that is. So that's your values, your beliefs, who you really are, right? And accepting who you really are. That's a hard choice. Because a lot of times we don't accept who we truly are. We accept how other people want us to be, or what expectations people have of us, or what you think, what you truly are. So number one is who you truly are. Number two is the people that you put around you. That is your choice. You get to choose who's around you and who's not. And by the way, what is the most important choice in that category? What is it's probably one of the most important choices you'll ever make in your life. Do you know what it is?
Who you end up with marrying?
Exactly. Smart. That's right. Yep. The person that you choose to spend the rest of your life with is the number. We can talk about it if we have time. I'll tell you that's it. So, but the people that you choose to be around you, right? You've got, I don't know if you've heard the how life around you is built, but you've got like 3 to 5 people that are closest to you. Then you've got the 5 to 10 people that are your close friends, that are like, or good friends, whatever. Then there's that kind of 10 to 20 acquaintances that you kind of hang out with sometimes, and then there's kind of everybody else, right? And so the people that you choose to live in each of those circles, or be in each of those circles, and who's in those circles, who you choose to kick off the island, who you choose to bring onto the island, who you choose to stay on the island, all your choice. And the people around you will decide if and when you become that number. Remember, we talked, number one was who you choose to be. The people around you will shape that, right? So who you choose. The third is what is around you. So where you choose to live, how you choose to live, what's around you, and more importantly, what you allow to come into your environment. So it's your environment, right? What you allow to come into your environment. What news do you listen to? What books do you read? What do you take in? How do you set, like my office is set up very specifically for the environment that I want, right? We're very fitness conscious. So our house is a really good example. We have a gym, we have a sauna, we have a spa, we have compression stuff. We have all this stuff in our house because fitness is so important, and we put it right around, literally we build it around us, right? So think about, just if you stop right there, right? You know who you want to be, you put the right people around you, and you put yourself in the right place, you're going to be pretty successful right there, right? So those are the three sort of internal choices, and you make a choice on all of those every day. So the other three then are what happens once you've done that. The first is communication. How you choose to speak, what you choose to speak, what you choose to say, how you choose to say it, what words you use are so, so important. So communication is way overlooked. Written communication, verbal communication, how you communicate with your partner, with your friends, hugely important. You make choices on what words you use, how you use them, right? So the words that you use in the communication. That's number 4. Number 5 is the attitude that you have. You get to choose everything in life is an energy. Everything in life, I've learned this. Everything is an energy. You could say certain things, whatever else, but you don't have the right energy behind it, then the words don't matter as much, right? It's the energy. So what attitude do you have? You have an optimistic or a pessimistic attitude, right? Do you look for opportunity, or do you shy away from challenges? Like, are you generally, I'm going to chase joy, or I'm an intention, or I'm going to just kind of let things happen? So the attitude that you choose every day is the 5th. And then the last, which might be the most important, is what you actually do every single day. You choose what you do every single day, right? So you could read books, You could go to FLA, you could listen to this podcast, you could do all this stuff. But if you just say, hey, that was great, I'm inspired, that's good, but you don't do anything about it, it's not going to matter. It's what you choose to do. And as we talked about before, choosing to do something extraordinary, just think about the stacking effect. If every time you do something on the job or applying for a job or a project at school, if you do that plus, I always call it +1. If you do that +1, +1, +1, it stacks up, right? So the things that you do will determine what you get back. The things that you say will determine what you get back. The attitude that you put out there, the energy you put out there is exactly what you're going to get back. So those are the 6 choices I think that are so critical that if you just focus on that and make choices, most people are like, well, no, one of the choices is the job you take. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what job you take because there's another one, there's another one, there's another one, right? And it doesn't matter. Those are the 6 most important things. So we people don't talk enough about those choices, I think, in life and really focus on that.
You've highlighted and emphasized like who do you want to be, right? That's always like, you know, it's your choice. And I think something you'd also discussed at FLA was, you know, you get to decide what actions you're going to take. So I remember there was this like the 6-step kind of thing, like you decide what your values are, and your values create your thoughts, and then your thoughts create your habits, and your habits create, you know, what's the chain of events look like there?
Yeah, so the chain of events is who you are, your values and your beliefs, right, drives how you think. How you think drives what you say. What you say will drive what you do. What you do consistently will determine what your habits are, and those habits will ultimately is the person you become to be, right? So if you are someone who is always negative, right? You're going to tell yourself, I'm not good enough. I can't do that. That's not for me. That's never going to work out. So those are the words words are so incredibly powerful. Every word that you use to yourself, if you could sit down and like the things that you say to yourself, if you said them to your friend, they would not be your friend anymore, right? So the what you think and believe become the words, and you know those words become the choices that you make, and those choices then become the things that you do and the things that you do over time. So if you want to be fit, you have to have it's a value system, it's a non-negotiable, and it's a belief. I can get fit and I'm going to do it. Then you use the words, I'm going to work out, I'm fit, I'm an athlete, right? And then so you're like, well, I'm an athlete. What does an athlete do? An athlete goes to the gym. You go to the gym. You make a choice. Even when you don't want to. So you've used the word, you've made the choice to go to the gym. So you're doing it. Then you go to the gym again and again and again and again. And then all of a sudden people are like, wow, look at you. Like, doing that, right? It's because you became who you are, right? If you want a certain job, you're like, I want that job. I believe I'm good for that job. I'm going after that job, no matter what it is, right? You're using those words. You make choices to do things different than other people. And then you do it again and again. A handwritten note, a follow-up that no one else would do, something memorable in the interview, da, 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 da. And once you get the job, you're doing these things that other people aren't doing. All of a sudden, people start to notice, hey, that's a standout person there, right? And then all of a sudden now you get new career opportunities, you get projects that people don't get, and all because it started with the things that you thought and you believe. But it all starts with that, which is why inputs are really important, because if you hear and you take in people saying the world is on fire, the world is this, there's no opportunities, you're not good enough, and that becomes what you actually believe, those are the words you use. Those words are going to drive the choices, because if you tell yourself you're not good enough, the choice you're going to make is you're not going to do it. Right? So that's the chain of events that you were talking about.
And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and one of the hosts said something that I think has like really kind of reframed the way that I look at my life, and it goes kind of perfectly in with this. She said, she was like, you're never, we always have our future versions of ourselves. And we picture our future lives. So whether it's one of us, like, having a family one day or having the dream job, or yada, 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 whatever person fill goal in here. But what she said is that you're never going to feel different than you feel right now. Like, you don't just get to wake up one day and you're that future version of yourself. You weren't who you were yesterday. You can't feel how you felt yesterday. And you can't feel how you're going to feel in 10 years' time. You build that every single second that you feel right now. Like the person I am right now, you just continue to build. So when you speak to yourself in ways like that, even, and it goes back to like fake it till you make it. Even if you don't feel confident, even if you don't feel happy, even if you don't feel fit, when you say this to yourself and this version of yourself that doesn't feel like that, then over time you start to believe that, like you said, develop those habits. And then that person, right, 2 months from now is going to be the person that you have taught that person to become and that you have been able to kind of prepare yourself to be. So I think that that goes in perfectly with that. Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was just one of the most like, I don't know why. I just think sometimes like it's so easy to just think like one day I'm gonna just wake up and it's poof, it's gonna just, I'm gonna be a different person and all my dreams are gonna come true. And we hear it through manifestation, we hear it through all the stuff that's trending virally and everyone's doing all these kind of almost to a crazy level sometimes, like the way that people will manifest things. But whatever works for you works. But I think it's truly just about that intention behind it and being able to believe what you're saying. I was having a bad day the other day, like just a really awful bad day. And I was like calling my mom and I was, this is a really bad day. And I was like, you know what? This is a great day. And I kind of just didn't even believe it at all. But I told myself, like, I'm gonna believe it. Like, I mean, I read all these things all the time. I'm saving all these TikTok quotes. Like, I might as well do it one, you know? And the rest of the day, like, I just kept telling myself, like, you know what? That was a little bit of an issue, but whatever. It's a good day. And it truly became a good day towards the end of the day. Like, I was like, you know what? Even though that happened, like, I was able to get through it with this positivity rather than just surviving through it in the negative. And I think it really does work, even on those temporary levels.
Yeah, it does. And it's really interesting. Like if you're working towards something, Simon Sinek talks about this a lot. It's really hard because if you know that there's something, there's a lot in what you said. So let me real quick here. If there's something that you want, you have to start working for it. Like you don't wake up one day and you're fat. You woke up one day and realized you're fat because you ate a McDonald's burger and then again and then again and again and again. And then you do it time after time after time, eating more calories than you should. And then over time, the weight gets put on. You don't just eat one burger and boom, you're fat, right? You don't go to the gym and you work out once and boom, you're fit, right? It's like if you want to get fit, you want to get healthy, or you want to get a certain job or whatever, there's a step you have to take. And then you have to do it again and again and again. And the first month or 2 months or 3 months, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not seeing anything happen. No, stuff's happening. You just don't see it. But then ultimately you start to hit this curve and also like, oh my gosh, I can see change, I can see this, I can see that. And right, same thing in relationships, like, well, I said thank you, or I said I love you, or I did this and you got to do it again and again and again and again and again, and then also like you start to see it. So it's called the compound effect. Darren Hardy has a book on this, right? And so it's a great book, and it's like investing, right? You have a penny that doubles that, every single day. Okay, so one penny became two. I didn't see anything. Two pennies became four. I don't see anything. 4 pennies became eight. I don't see anything. But over time, it's like over 30 days, if you kind of keep doubling everything, it turns into millions, right? And so it's sort of that same thing. Is just doing things every single day. So that's kind of one thing I would take. The other thing I would say is just like we talked about, what you believe and think become the words that you use, becomes the things that happen to you, right? And everything else. So I'm going to challenge you a little bit. You said you had a bad day. So your belief and your thought was you had a bad day. You told yourself you had a bad day. Guess
Right.
what? No matter what you did, you were going to have a bad day.
Yeah.
Now, if you had said, okay, well, that was the words you use are important. If you say, well, that was bad, you're going to think that was bad. The choice you're going to make is that that was bad, and you're going to do something that was bad. Now, if you said instead, if you said that was a challenge, what could I take from that? Oh, like you think differently. So there's this thing called automaticity. Your brain goes into kind of automatic mode. It wants to conserve energy. It doesn't want to think hard. So right now, as you're younger, if you do this and you think about, I'm not going to use the word bad. I'm not going to ever use the word bad day. everything's an opportunity, right? It's really hard at first. You have to tell yourself to do it. You have to train yourself to do it. But then automaticity kicks in and it becomes natural. It just becomes the thing you do. Like I have a coach who helps me even now, and she tells me this all the time. And she's one of the most positive people. I'm like, you can't really be this positive. And she's like, no, I am every day. Something happens to me. Guy hits me. I got into an accident the other day. I was like, she said her first thought was, cool, I get to meet someone new. I'm like, what? Like, wait a minute.
I've never heard of that in my life.
No, it doesn't. First of all, I don't use that word. Second of all, it gave me an opportunity to meet someone new, right? And so she got out of the car. She's like, oh, hey, and so like I was like, so, but it's automatic for her because she practiced it and she does it, right? And so, when you don't ever say you had a bad day. Don't ever say that, right? Then just be very you can if you want. I'm not telling you what to do. But just the words that you use really matter. So if you said to yourself, okay, that was a challenge. What am I going to do now? Or where did that steer me now? Or what does the universe or God or whatever you believe in tell me? What is this telling me to do now? Right? It changes everything in your mindset.
Well, here's to that. Here's the positivity. Here's like I'm leaving inspired and excited. I feel like I'm changing my mindset as we speak.
Yeah, thank you so much for the time, for giving us your story with honesty, with grace, hearing about your journey of you had uncertainty in your past, but you turned that into leadership and into purpose, is a reminder that kind of resilience grows within all of us, and it's kind of our choice and our decision to make that conscious decision to keep on moving forward and to keep on persevering. So thank you for coming out here and doing this podcast with us, and go Gators.
Go Gators.
Go Gators.